Based on what grounds can we claim that the Buddha had achieved enlightenment? And can we justify such a claim that is not a blind or ignorant, but rather a clear-sighted and intelligent act? And what sensible evidence do we have to prove our claim? We first have to prove to ourselves that what we're studying is worthwhile and that the person that we're studying from had achieved enlightenment 3,000 years ago. So there are three things that we can base to prove to ourselves that what we're studying will lead us to enlightenment. So the first is faith grounded in intuition. So it's just not by hearsay that you believe, but there is faith based on our own intuition. According to Mahayana teachings, every sentient being has this so-called element of Buddhahood. It is our consciousness, it is something that drives us, and it is a reflection of the absolute in the mirror of our individual consciousness. We all have this ability to pursue something great, something meaningful, something that is greater than our own selves. And that is the element of Buddhahood. And because that we have this element of Buddhahood, that we have this affinity towards enlightenment, we resonate with enlightenment. According to one of the main Indian scriptural sources for Buddha nature theory, if sentient beings do not have this element of Buddhahood, then they will not have the drive to run away from suffering and the gravitation towards something that's pleasant. And as human beings, we will not have this wish for nirvana, wish for no suffering. And we will not have any striving for it. We will not have any resolve to win it. And so because that we have this element of Buddhahood, that we can gravitate and resonate with enlightenment. Whether it's egoistic or altruistic, there is a drive for something, either of selfishness or something that's of a higher meaning. This resonance is like a string of a musical instrument. When it is struck, it resonates, and the strings next to that string that's being struck will resonate as well. When we are faced with this ideal of enlightenment, altruism, we resonate with it, and our element of Buddhahood starts to vibrate. When we are faced with the Buddha, whether image of a Buddha, or some people who were lucky enough to face the physical body of the Buddha, his mighty cord of supreme enlightenment starts to vibrate. In this world, there's so much suffering. Even the sound of Buddha is hard to come by in this world. And hearing the words of enlightenment, compassion, and wisdom gives us a sense of peace and happiness, and the aspiration towards something that is more than just ourselves. And that's the vibration of our element of Buddhahood. As opposed to hearing the sounds or the words of hatred, vengeance, terrorism, it will cause us to have anxiety and fear, which strikes the chords of hatred in our hearts. So upon hearing the sounds of Buddha, we know that it is not out of the realm of possibility that we can achieve something that's beyond suffering and dissatisfaction, and the possibility of ending sufferings for ourselves and for others. So if we hear the sounds of greed, anger, and delusion, then we know that we are not very far from suffering, right? You agree? If the environment around us is filled with compassion, loving kindness, enlightenment, then we know that it's a bright future. If everything around us resonates with enlightenment, compassion, then we know that we are getting further and further away from suffering and dissatisfaction. And this is exactly what Anathapindika, the treasurer at the time of the Buddha, said when he first heard the word Buddha. He had never heard of the Buddha. He just happened to visit his brother-in-law one day. And his brother-in-law mentions that he was going to make offerings to the Buddha. And that's what Anathapindika heard was the word Buddha. And all of his being starts to resonate with this word Buddha, even though he had no idea who this person was. And he was so overwhelmed with joy and curiosity that he started to repeat the question 3 times. Did you say Buddha? Did you say Buddha? Did you just say Buddha? Can I go see him? But his brother-in-law said, no, not now. We're going to go see him tomorrow. And he kept asking, can we go see the Buddha now? He said, no, we're not going to see him until tomorrow. He was so excited still that during the night, he woke up 3 times thinking that it was morning to go see the Buddha. When we are faced with the Buddha, we will have this resonance. When we see this magnificent physical body of the Buddha, we start to resonate with joy. It's not easy to describe that or to even think how it is by reading books of people who experience seeing the Buddha. But his external physical appearance was a reflection of his own merits. That's why when those who saw the Buddha could not even utter a word but just to be in awe. After the Buddha had achieved enlightenment, he went out into the world to preach the Dharma, to share what he had discovered, the truth that he had discovered. It was just a normal conversation with regular folks. And the Buddha would speak to them from the depth of his own spiritual experience. And he would share the Dharma with them. And at that time, it was all fresh, original, and creative. They've never heard this before. He would talk to them about the truth that he discovered and the way leading to enlightenment. And the person who was receiving the Dharma talk was absolutely astounded and absolutely overwhelmed. And in some cases, he may not be able to speak at all, and he will only be able to stammer a few words, or some just say in complete silence because they were so overwhelmed with the truth that they had received. And something that was revealed to him by the Buddha, the truth that he had never known, and it was beyond his ordinary understanding. And he was so grateful for the fact that he had a glimpse of the truth. And normally, you see in the scriptures, the person would exclaim, "Excellent, Lord, excellent." He was revealed of what was hidden. To him, it was like carrying a lamp into darkness, or a blind person now regained his eyesight. And now he could see clearly the path towards enlightenment. And out of gratitude that he exclaimed, "Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhamman saranam gacchami, and Sangham saranam gacchami," meaning I go to the Buddha for refuge, I go to the Dhamma for refuge, and I go to the Sangha for refuge. When he has heard such truth, and he can now see the possibility of gaining enlightenment, his heart is filled with joy and gratitude that he takes refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And that was very typical for a person during the Buddha's day when they saw his physical appearance, that they were filled with joy. And some people during the Buddha's time, when they were not able to see the Buddha's physical appearance, they used their visualizations to see the body of glory of the Buddha with their spiritual eyes. And for some who were more advanced, they were able to see the Dhammakaya, the Dhamma body of the Buddha, by realizing the teachings, realizing the law of conditionality. And for some, the resonance of their element of Buddhahood was so strong that upon seeing the body of the Buddha, they enter the stream of sagehood, such as the Samana, the florist, that upon seeing the Buddha, his body was completely filled with joy, and he was able to enter the stream of sagehood, meaning that he would not regress towards the mundaneness, towards the lower 3 realms. This is intuition. Intuition alone at our level is really not enough. Intuition is sufficient for those who are spiritually mature. Otherwise, for mundane beings, they can indulge in mundane desires and satisfying the prejudices. So saying that we believe in the Buddha, but we don't understand the principles, we don't study the Dharma, then it can make us more egoistic, because we will end up defending our beliefs, defending our views, and that will make us biased, prejudiced. And that kind of belief will not last, because that kind of belief is egoistically driven, meaning that there is a satisfaction in knowing that one has acquired something great. But if somebody challenges that belief, then if we don't understand the principle, we're only based on our intuitions, then we can take that as an offense. And of course, the ego will want to defend itself. And therefore, in addition to intuition, we should also have this reality check, meaning that we should study the Buddhist principles. And that's why our faith needs to be grounded in reasons and sensible evidence, not just intuition.